There is a particular quality to the night before something changes. Not the change itself, not the aftermath. The night before. When the thing that has been building has not yet released, and part of you can sense that by morning the atmosphere will be different, even if you cannot fully name why or what it will feel like when it arrives. That is tonight, March 1, 2026. And if you have been feeling an unusual kind of restlessness today, not urgency exactly, more like a low hum of awareness, like your nervous system is keeping track of something your conscious mind has not quite caught up to yet, I want to tell you that is not random. That is Mars sitting at the final degree of Aquarius, hours away from leaving a sign it has occupied since January 23rd. 7 weeks, longer than Mars usually stays anywhere. And tonight is the last night of it. At 9:16 tomorrow morning Eastern Time, Mars moves into Pisces. And everything that Mars and Aquarius has been pressing on in your life, every place where you have felt the pressure to think differently, act with principle, push against a system or a structure that no longer makes sense to you, every place where you have felt the friction between what you believe and how you are actually living, that chapter closes, not gently, not with a dramatic announcement, just quietly, the way the sky changes color before you notice the sun has moved. But here is what I want to focus on today, because the ingress itself is tomorrow's story. Today is about what it means to be at a final degree, and specifically what it means when Mars, the planet of drive and action and the part of you that moves toward what it wants, is sitting at the very last minute of a sign. There is a compressed quality to that energy, a kind of urgency that is not anxious but is very, very awake. If you have been putting something off, if there is a conversation you have been circling, a decision that has been forming but not landing, a truth that has been sitting in the back of your chest waiting for the right moment, this is the right moment, not because the stars demand it. Because the energy available tonight specifically supports the kind of clarity that late degrees bring. The feeling of everything that has been developing suddenly finding its sharpest edge. Before we go further, if this is already resonating with something you have been sitting with this week, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe so you catch everything coming through March. And drop last degree in the comments. I want to see who feels the particular weight of tonight. Alright, let me get into what is actually happening in the sky right now. So here is the thing about final degrees that I think is worth actually understanding, because it gets thrown around a lot in astrology content, without much explanation. Every sign is 30 degrees, 0 through 29, and there is a texture to how a planet moves through those degrees. In the early degrees, it is still getting oriented, exploring the new terrain, figuring out how its energy expresses in this sign's atmosphere. In the middle degrees, it is settled in. The work is happening, the themes are developed and active. But in the late degrees, and especially at the 28th, 29th degree, there is a quality of culmination, of urgency, of things that need to be finished before the chapter closes. Astrologers call the 29th degree the anaretic degree, and there is a reason it carries the weight it does. Planets at this degree are under pressure to complete whatever the sign's work was asking of them. And Mars at the last degree of Aquarius is not a quiet, patient energy. Mars is the most action-oriented planet in the sky. Aquarius is the sign of ideas, principles, collective thinking, and the kind of innovation that comes from stepping outside the accepted framework. Mars in Aquarius for 7 weeks has been pushing you to act on what you believe, not just think about it. And tonight, at the final degree, that push intensifies. Now, there is something else worth noting about Mars right now that adds a layer to this. Mars is in a waning square to Uranus in Taurus. This is the same square that was exact and very dramatic on February 27th, but it is still within orb, still active. A waning square has a different quality than an exact square. The peak of the disruption has already happened. What you are left with is the integration of it, the question of what to actually do with what that square cracked open. For a lot of people, February 27th brought something into the open, a realization, a shift in a relationship, a decision that could no longer be deferred, a sudden clarity about something that had been murky for weeks. And now, 4 days later, with Mars still in that waning aspect to Uranus, the question is not what just happened, but what you are going to do about it before Mars moves on and the energy available for action softens into something much more diffuse. Because Pisces, where Mars goes tomorrow, is not an action sign. I do not mean that as a criticism. Pisces has extraordinary qualities, and Mars in Pisces is capable of a particular kind of compassionate, intuitive movement that Aquarius Mars cannot access. But it is not crisp. It is not sharp. It does not give you the clarity of purpose that Mars in Aquarius, particularly at this late degree, is offering tonight. So if there is something you have been meaning to do with the information February gave you, tonight has a particular quality of support for it. Not dramatic, not urgent in an anxious way, just very awake, very clear. The window is open. And there is something else in the sky tonight that I want to bring in, because it is impossible to separate from what Mars is doing at the final degree, even though it has not technically arrived yet. The total lunar eclipse in Virgo is in 36 hours. It happens on March 3rd at 6:38 a.m. Eastern Time at 12 degrees and 54 minutes of Virgo. And eclipse energy does not wait for the exact moment of the event. It builds. It has been building for days already. You can probably feel it if you pay attention, that specific quality of things becoming more visible than you expected them to be, truths rising with an efficiency that feels slightly faster than usual. Lunar eclipses in Virgo are very specific in what they illuminate. Virgo rules the places in your life where you deal with the practical reality of how you are actually living. Health, daily routine, work, the systems and habits that either support you or drain you. The gap between how you feel about your life and how you are functionally operating within it. Virgo is the sign that cannot pretend the details do not matter, because Virgo knows that the details are actually where life happens. Not in the big dramatic gestures, but in what you eat and how you sleep, and whether the structure of your days is genuinely working for you, or whether you have been maintaining something through sheer habit that needs to be redesigned. A lunar eclipse in Virgo brings this into sharp focus. It shows you the gap, clearly, often uncomfortably. Not because the universe wants you to feel bad about it, but because Virgo's particular gift is the ability to see things with precision, to identify what is out of alignment without the kind of emotional fog that prevents honest assessment. And here is the interesting thing about a lunar eclipse in Virgo happening at 12 degrees. In opposition to the Sun in Pisces, you have been in Pisces season since February 18th. You have had weeks of dissolving, of feeling, of going inward, of being less sure about the edges of things. That is Pisces doing what Pisces does. And the Virgo eclipse is the opposite force arriving to say, okay, but now look clearly. Look at what is actually here. The Sun in Pisces is also in opposition to this eclipse, and it is moving toward a beautiful trine with Jupiter, retrograde in Cancer. That Sun-Jupiter trine perfects on March 5th, which is only 4 days out. So in the same window that this eclipse is doing its clarifying, sometimes uncomfortable work in Virgo, Jupiter in Cancer is expanding warmth and possibility and the sense that things can genuinely work out. The two energies are not contradictory, they are actually complementary in a way that is worth sitting with. Virgo shows you what needs to change. Jupiter in Cancer shows you that there is genuine support and expansion available when you align with what is true. What that means for tonight specifically is that the eclipse is already pulling things to the surface. Things in your daily life, your health, your work, your habits that have been running on autopilot. And Mars at the final degree of Aquarius, with its particular quality of sharp completion and pressed urgency, is in some ways the perfect companion energy. Mars gives you the drive to do something with what the eclipse is revealing, and the eclipse gives you something specific and real to direct that drive toward. There is also a sextile from the Virgo eclipse to Jupiter, retrograde in Cancer, that is worth noting. A sextile is a 60-degree aspect of ease, of doors that open without you having to push particularly hard. Jupiter in Cancer is the planet of expansion in the sign of emotional roots, home, and what genuinely nourishes you. So while the eclipse does its clarifying work in Virgo, Jupiter in Cancer is providing a soft supporting angle of emotional abundance underneath it. The clarity the eclipse brings is not arriving in a cold, sterile atmosphere. It is arriving with Jupiter's warmth nearby. That combination is actually quite usable. The truth that surfaces through a Virgo eclipse can sometimes feel harsh on its own, but with Jupiter in Cancer sextiling it, what you get is honest clarity delivered with the understanding that there is enough support to actually do something with it. And Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is the ruler of this eclipse sign, is sitting in the middle of all of this in opposition to the Virgo eclipse degree. Mercury retrograde means that how you think about what the eclipse reveals is not linear. It is circular. You may reach a realization and then find yourself questioning it, and then come back to it from a slightly different angle and find it is still true. That is not indecision. That is the retrograde doing its job of making sure the understanding is thorough before it becomes action. Let me talk about who is feeling this the most, because the sky tonight is not landing equally for everyone, and it is worth understanding where in your chart these energies are actually active. Aquarius, this is your Mars, and it is leaving your sign tomorrow. If you've been in a particular season of drive and assertion and principle-led action these past 7 weeks, you have probably felt more like yourself in certain ways than you had in a while. Aquarius Mars in your first house has been firing up your sense of agency and your willingness to act on what you believe. Tomorrow that direct, clear energy softens. Before it does, tonight is worth using. Not dramatically, not with a plan, just with honesty. Is there something you have been meaning to say or do or decide that Mars in your sign gave you the energy for? The window for that particular quality of clarity is tonight. Taurus, you are still in the waning aftermath of the Mars-Uranus square, and that square hit your sign directly. Uranus has been in Taurus for 7 years, slowly but persistently rewriting your relationship to security, to what you own, to the material structures of your life. Mars squaring it last week was the activation, the sudden electrical charge into whatever Uranus has been quietly revolutionizing in that area. What you are sitting with right now is the question of what you actually do differently from here. The Virgo eclipse on March 3rd lights up your 5th house, which is creativity, pleasure, and what you make for the joy of making it. There is something in that combination worth noting. The structural upheaval Uranus and Mars initiated in your material life is connected to rediscovering what you genuinely want to create and experience. Not what makes financial sense. What makes you feel alive? Virgo, the eclipse is yours. 12 degrees of Virgo, a total lunar eclipse, and it is landing directly in your first house of identity, appearance, and the self you project outward. This is not a small thing. Total lunar eclipses in your own sign are rare, and they carry the quality of a major chapter closing on how you have been showing up in the world. The patterns you have used to organize your life and your sense of self are being illuminated right now, sometimes in ways that feel startling. The opposition to the Sun in Pisces is asking you to find the balance between your gift for precision and the need to also allow for softness, for dissolving, for the things that cannot be neatly organized into a working system. The eclipse does not ask you to abandon your Virgo nature. It asks you to let it integrate with something larger. Pisces, you have the most planets in your sign of anyone right now. The Sun. Mercury retrograde. Venus, still in Pisces until March the 6th. The North Node. This is an unusual concentration of energy in your sign, and you are probably feeling it as an intensity that is hard to categorize. The retrograde Mercury is pulling you back through recent emotional history, surfacing things that need to be re-seen. Venus is keeping a quality of warmth and openness in all of that, and the Sun is moving you forward toward the trine with Jupiter in Cancer, which arrives March 5th and brings a genuine sense of expansion and possibility. If the last 2 weeks have felt like you were swimming through something thick and emotionally demanding, what is coming in the next week is genuinely lighter, not because the depth disappears, because Jupiter opens something generous around it. For everyone else, find where late Aquarius falls in your chart. That is where Mars has been pressing. And find 12 to 13 degrees of Virgo. That is where the eclipse lands. These two areas of your chart are the active zones right now, and understanding their house meaning gives you the specific life territory that this energy is working with. I want to come back to the title of this video, because I chose it deliberately, and I think it captures something real about March 1st that the planetary positions alone do not fully convey. Everything quiet, not everything dramatic, not everything explosive, not the kind of change that announces itself. The kind that happens while you are going about your day, while you are making coffee or driving somewhere or sitting with a feeling you cannot quite name. The kind that you understand only slightly after the fact, when you look back and realize that March 1st was the last day things were arranged in that particular configuration. And the day after, and the day after that, they were different. Mars moves into Pisces tomorrow morning. That is one change, but there are others happening right now that are less visible and more interior. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is still doing its specific work of pulling you back through the emotional material of the last month. We have had an extraordinary February. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 20th was a once-in-36-year event. The solar eclipse on the 17th opened a new cycle in the Aquarius-Leo axis. The Venus-Jupiter trine on the 22nd brought a moment of warmth in the middle of all that structural disruption. And through all of it, Mercury has been slowing toward its station and is now moving backward, retrieving what moved too quickly, surfacing the emotional and relational content that did not get fully processed the first time through. What is quiet about this is that it does not ask for dramatic action. It asks for honest attention. It asks you to notice what keeps surfacing, what thought loops back, what feeling arrives uninvited and with more weight than the current moment seems to warrant. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is not a malfunction. It is a retrieval process. And the things it is retrieving, the relationship dynamics, the conversations, the half-processed realizations from the last month, they are surfacing now because they are not finished. Saturn and Neptune are both sitting at 1 degree of Aries. This conjunction, which was exact on February 20th, has not gone anywhere. These two planets are still side by side, and they will continue to be within a very close orb for weeks. What they represent together is the meeting point between what is real and what is possible, between the structure you can count on and the vision you cannot yet touch. Aries at 0 and 1 degrees is the very beginning, the absolute genesis point of a new cycle. And the fact that the planet of committed reality and the planet of unlimited imagination are sitting right there together means that what is being built at the foundation level right now is something genuinely new. Not adjusted from the old, new. You probably feel this as a kind of uncertainty about the future, a sense that the map you have been using no longer quite matches the terrain. That is not confusion. That is what it actually feels like when a framework you have lived inside for years begins to be replaced by something larger and as yet unnamed. The uncertainty is not the problem. The uncertainty is evidence that the transition is real. And Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, at 15 degrees, is providing something underneath all of this that is worth naming. Jupiter retrograde does not expand outward, it expands inward. It makes more available of whatever Cancer governs, which is the inner life, emotional roots, what you understand as home, the felt sense of belonging and being supported. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is a generous interior landscape right now. Even if the exterior feels uncertain or in flux, even if the practical structures are unclear. Inside, at the level of what you know to be true and what you genuinely love, there is more room right now than there has been in a while. Jupiter turns direct on March 10th, 9 days from now, and when it does, whatever has been expanding inward during the retrograde begins to find an outward expression. the emotional clarity you are building through this period, the understanding of what you actually need, what actually nourishes you, what actually feels like home in the deepest sense. That understanding does not stay interior indefinitely. Jupiter direct in Cancer takes what the retrograde developed and brings it into tangible form, into relationships, into where you live and how you live, into the choices you make about where to put your energy and who you put it toward. So sitting with what is true right now on March 1st in the quiet before the eclipse and the ingress and Jupiter turning is not passive. It is preparatory. What you understand tonight about what you actually need and what is actually working and what is actually not, that understanding feeds directly into what you build when Jupiter turns direct in 9 days. March 1st is quiet because all of this is working below the surface. The eclipse is building but has not yet arrived. Mars is completing but has not yet shifted. Mercury is moving backward through territory that needs a second look. Saturn and Neptune are sitting at the beginning of something enormous that will take years to fully understand. And Jupiter is quietly making the interior larger. The change tonight is not the kind you see, it is the kind you feel. The kind that asks you to slow down for a moment and notice what is actually true in your life right now. Not what you have been projecting, not what you are planning, not what you are hoping for, but what is genuinely, quietly, actually present. That is the quality of tonight. And sometimes the most significant changes in a life are the ones that happen in exactly that register. Not with announcement, with a shift in the atmosphere. The kind you understand only when you look back and realize that was the night before everything was different. If this landed somewhere real for you tonight, leave a like and subscribe. And comment last degree below. I want to see who is in this particular space on March 1st, sitting with the final hours of Mars in Aquarius and everything that is about to change. Take care of yourselves this week. The eclipse is 2 days out and the sky is asking for honesty before it offers relief. You already know what that honesty is. You have probably known it for a while. See you on the other side of it.